The town of Ridgewood was built around Baxter Textile Factory. Generations worked there. Then silence. The factory closed. It stood, a monument to lost prosperity. Only Frank, the night watchman, remained. He had worked there for 20 years, a silent witness to its slow decay. He knew every creak, every groan of the old building, or so he thought. Frank had started as a young man full of ambition. He had intended to work his way up, just like his father before him. But the factory had other plans. It began to decline, slowly at first, then faster, until there was nothing left but to close it down. Frank stayed on, out of some sense of loyalty, or perhaps just inertia. He became the caretaker of a ghost. The factory had a dark past whispered about in the town, but rarely spoken aloud. Accidents, they said, strange disappearances. Frank had never paid much attention. They were just stories, he told himself. But as the years passed and the factory sank deeper into disrepair, he began to wonder. Each night was the same. Frank arrived at dusk. He walked the perimeter, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. He punched the clock at the main gate, the heavy metal cold against his hand. He always started in the spinning room, rows of silent looms stretched into the darkness. Dust motes danced in the faint light filtering through the grimy windows. He checked the boiler room, the furnace cold and lifeless. He made his rounds of the offices, their desks and chairs gathering dust. He finished in the locker room, its metal lockers rusted and dented. Sometimes he imagined he could hear the voices of the workers, their laughter echoing through the empty halls. He knew every shadow, every corner. He had memorized the patterns of the moonlight on the floor. He could tell the difference between the scuttling of a rat and the creak of settling wood. Or so he thought until his final shift began. The air felt different that night, heavier, colder. Frank felt a prickle of unease on the back of his neck. He dismissed it. It was his last night, that's all. He was just letting his imagination run wild. He continued his rounds, his footsteps unnaturally loud in the silence. As he passed the old foreman's office, he heard it, a whisper, distinct. He stopped, listening intently. Silence. He chuckled to himself. "Getting jumpy in your old age, Frank?" he muttered. He continued on, but the feeling of unease remained. The spinning room was always the eeriest. Tonight it was worse. The shadows seemed deeper, the dust thicker. He shone his flashlight down the rows of silent machines, imagining them suddenly springing to life, their gears whirring, belts spinning. He could have sworn he heard the murmur of voices, but when he turned, there was nothing there. The locker room always felt colder than the rest of the factory. Tonight, it was like stepping into a freezer. His breath formed clouds in the air. He shone his flashlight around the room. The metal lockers gleamed dully in the beam. And then he heard it again. The whisper, closer this time, right behind him. He spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. Nothing. He was alone. He took a step back, his hand brushing against something cold and metallic. He whipped his flashlight around. It illuminated a single locker, slightly ajar. He stared at it, every muscle in his body tense. He knew that locker. It had been empty for years. He took a deep breath and slowly opened the locker door. The smell hit him first, musty, old, with a strange metallic tang. Then he saw it. A faded work shirt hung inside, the name tag barely visible in the dim light. William, it read, the name of the factory worker who had vanished without a trace all those years ago. Frank slammed the locker shut and backed away, his blood turning to ice. He didn't need to see anymore. He knew. He ran. He didn't stop running until he was out of the factory gates, the cold night air stinging his lungs. He never looked back. Frank never returned to the factory. He left Ridgewood shortly after, unable to escape the memory of that night. The factory remained, a silent sentinel overlooking the town. The stories of its haunting grew stronger, fueled by Frank's experience. Some dismissed it as an old man's delusions, but those who lived in the shadow of the Baxter Textile Factory knew the truth. It was a place of whispers and shadows, a place where the past refused to die.